We return once again to the Gamora sector, a sector plagued by war after the battle aboard the mighty battle station Orion against the Ork war boss Gazskull Man Thraka. Intelligence has come in that an Ork Hulk was trying to break through a nearby asteroid field on its way to Progen, and all Imperial ships have been dispatched to intercept before it's too late. The massive fleet from the HDF and the Battle Brothers descended upon a nearby mining colony, which last reports indicate that the massive Ork rock was hiding out in before it made its assault towards Progen.
Right lads, we spent far too long building this mighty Ork crit to get blown up by the homies.
The battle opened with the Ork fighter squadron screaming across the void, preparing to put up a screening assault for the rest of the force to advance behind them. The Ork bomber squadron follows in hot pursuit, and the HDF gunship team rumbles across the void, backed up by a HDF fighter squadron, which soars into the Ork gunship units. However, none of its lasers manage to penetrate the crude Ork ship's hull. Eager to retaliate against the HDF, an Ork fighter squadron screamed up alongside, but its lasers also missed its mark. The second Ork fighter squadron soared in across the sky, its lasers shattering apart the HDF shields, and with one shot getting through, it detonates the gunship amongst the void. The HDF smallest vessels continue to get into position, with the bombers taking cover within the asteroid field and the fighter squadron also doing the same. With the Ork gunship team and another bomber squadron repositioning themselves for a further assault, a HDF fighter screams in alongside the Ork bomber squadron, unloading a hail of laser fire amongst the void. However, their shots ring hollow, get a pass without causing any significant damage to the vessel. The Ork pilots finally manage to down one of the HDF fighter squadrons as it soars alongside and blasts it apart amongst the stars. Another HDF bomber decides to soaring alongside the flanking force, whilst a Marauder bomber attempts to flank around the asteroid field.
Sneaky does it, lads, sneaky does it.
The ISS Necro enters battle formation against the oncoming Ork fleet, levels up a devastating barrage of its forward-facing laser cannons, peppering the Ork fighter squadrons in its wake. However, the ISS Necro's guns fail to do any damage, and the forward main battle cannons open fire targeting the Ork fighter squadron and smashing it to pieces.
Recalibrate those targeting turrets, we have Orks to shoot down.
Oh, we're getting shot out the sky, lads! Oh.
The Jolly Walker moves to meet the ISS Necro in battle, readying its forward laser turrets and main battle cannons. It lets loose a salvo of rounds at the oncoming ISS ship. However, the ship's shielding manages to hold back the deadly barrage, and they continue ever forward against the Orks. The Orks then attempt to fire their main massive battle cannon, however this overheats, scoring a hit against the Ork vessel. Phalanx Prime's afterburners burst to life as the ship presses the side of an asteroid field, lining up its side turrets towards the Ork Marauder bomber squadron as a torrent of superheated plasma fire knocks the vessel from the sky. Its forward weapon batteries then target the oncoming Ork bomber, who was seeking cover within the asteroid field, blasting it to sunder. The massive Ork Hulk surges forward across the stars, bringing turn 1 to an end. The Ork and the HDF forces have engaged in bitter dogfights across the battle space, yet, with its location now known, the Orks must flee the board edge before additional HDF reinforcements arrive. Wasting no time, an Ork bomber squadron rushes right into the side flank of the ISS Necro. However, its heavy torpedoes fail to land their mark. An Ork fighter squadron banks hard and does a 180-degree turn, coming up alongside the rear of a HDF fighter squadron. However, it fails to knock it from the sky. The HDF fighter squadron soars across the battle space in kind, and attempts to line up a devastating shot against the gunship unit. However, its heavy turret fire isn't enough to penetrate the armor. The HDF bomber receives confirmation and screams out from behind the asteroid cover, coming up on the rear of the Johnny Walker, unleashing a heavy barrage of missiles against the massive Ork construct. With one lucky shot going through, It smashes apart the rear Ork deflectors and the guns inside.
Take evasive action, lads. We got Umis coming up on the rear.
Ork Fighter Squadron zooms in alongside the HDF Squadron, unleashing a barrage of rounds in their direction, scoring successful hits and blasting apart the fighter. The Ork gunship then repositions to counter the approaching HDF bomber squadrons, blasting apart one from the battle space as the other screams forward, this time flanking towards the rear of the massive Ork rock. Landing one successful hit with its heavy missiles, it manages to deal a single wound to the massive Ork construct.
Those fires out, damn it, we got a world to burn.
SS Necro continues to engage with the Ork vessels. With its turrets now calibrated properly, it blasts apart the offending Ork bomber squadron from the sky with a single salvo. It then targets the massive Jolly Walker with its forward laser cannons, unloading a deadly barrage of rounds from its forward batteries, managing to score a single wound against the giant Ork ship. Not done with the carnage yet, the ISS Necro powers up its side missile batteries, firing off around them to the void. However, its missiles fly past its mark, landing harmlessly amongst the asteroids just beyond them. The Jolly Walker continues its forward assault, this time bringing up its entire side arsenal to bear against the ISS Necro. As its gigantic cannons light up the night sky, it manages to deal a single wound to the forward batteries of the HDF warship. The Jolly Walker's turrets then open fire, this time dealing 2 wounds, knocking out the forward batteries as well as the side missile batteries. The Jolly Walker's rear cannons then power up and deliver a devastating hit against the HDF bomber squadron, smashing it to pieces amongst the void and securing its flank from further attack. The Ork Hulk then attempts to put its engines into overdrive, taking 2 wounds in the process, but then sailing with ease across the void as it soars towards the approaching board edge and to perceive safety beyond. The Phalanx Prime powers up its engines and swings around the asteroid belt, keen to cut off the fleeing Ork rock before it can flee the battle space, unloading a barrage of rounds from its heavy turrets, smashing apart the Ork gunship squadron with ease.
Incoming! Ah!
The Phalanx Prime then sets its sight upon the 2 Ork fighter squadrons, unleashing a hail of missiles from its side weapon batteries, which smash apart the Ork fighters with ease, scattering their debris across the void. As turn 2 comes to a grueling end, both fleets are heavily engaged across the entire battle sector, with the HDF taking heavy casualties, yet dealing a decisive toll against the Ork's massive warships, as well as the myriad of fighter swarms. Turn 3 begins with the HDF fighter squadron soaring alongside the Great Ork Rock, unleashing a hail of heavy void shots towards its rear shields. However, the massive Ork vessel is unharmed after the assault. A HDF bomber receives confirmation and screams in behind the beleaguered Jolly Walker, unleashing a massive attack with its heavy void missiles. However, these hits fail to penetrate the mighty void shields. The ISS Necro, desperate to prevent the Ork rock from escaping, thunders alongside and powers up its side weapon batteries, unleashing a heavy salvo of rockets straight towards the Jolly Walker, which smash a grievous wound into the Great Ork vessel's side, bringing it down to a mere 7 wounds. The ISS Necro then powers up its forward turrets and unleashes a hail of shots at the Ork vessel, only managing to do a single wound as the Great Ork monstrosity lumbers ever forward. The Jolly Walker continues to press the attack against the ISS Necro, moving up even closer to the beleaguered ship and letting loose a foul torrent of heavy void laser fire, which crashes all along the ship. However, it fails to penetrate the Human Defense Force's powerful energy field. The rear cannon on the Jolly Walker fires at the bomber group, again securing its flank from any future attacks. And then it turns its attention to the Battle Brothers flagship, the Phalanx Prime, as it delivers an absolutely devastating broadside against the vessel, delivering a devastating 5 wounds against the Battle Brothers warship, bringing it down to a mere 6 wounds remaining and knocking out its key defensive armaments and weapons array. Wasting no time, the Phalanx Prime then thunders around the asteroid belt and lines up a devastating forward laser burst as well as a heavy turret attack against the Ork Rock as well as the Jolly Morka. On its assault on the Ork Rock, it manages to bring it down to a mere 4 wounds remaining, and against the Jolly Morka brings this horrid vessel down to 5 wounds remaining. The Ork Rock then rolls an overcharge effect for its engines and barely manages to pass the test, and the mighty mass of space debris with engines attached to it manages to flee the battle space, bringing the Great Clash and the hunt for the Hulk to a climactic conclusion. The HDS mobile fleet was absolutely mauled in this assault on the Hulk, and whilst the Orks were dealt a devastating blow in return, their forces have crept ever closer to the planet of Progen. Now, little else will stand in the way of this Ork assault as it prepares itself for the final voyage towards the doomed world, and a desperate call has been sent out to scramble all available Battle Brother Human Defense Force detachments to the area, as well as ferrying additional forces to the planet to prepare for this inevitable Ork invasion of Progen. Join us next week as we take part in the final decisive space battle of this mini-campaign. Will the rest of Gamora burn, much like Halifax Prime did? Or will the HDF and Battle Brothers manage to stand firm against the Ork assault, bringing their dreams of conquest to a bloody end?